Well, hello, folks. Brother D. Cruz here, your Life Applications Officer. As you can see, I've changed things around a little bit. I hope you don't mind. I put the bookshelf and my instruments over there, and I moved my table back here because of all that stuff that I have no place to put it. I have it nicely, neatly set up in the corner over here, where here was blocking the closet. And I moved I moved my bed, I moved my desk. My private desk is over there now, so it's in what we call the living room section of my place. And I am doing good. I'm doing good. I've had some interesting phone calls today, and one of the people that called me on the phone, I knew that he was going to ask me questions that I didn't really want him to ask me, to kind of make me guilty about my situation. And I want to remember some things. Now, when he said what he said to me, and he asked me what he asked me about my situation, I got all defensive and was saying, well, they did this to me, and this is why I'm in this situation. The only way you can say that they did this to me and this is why I'm in this situation is if you're a child. If a parent kicks a child out of the house, okay, a child can say, well, they did this to me, this is why I'm in that situation. Because a child is not old enough to, for their situation, to help themselves. So even if I kick out my teenager, because my teenager was being rebellious, yeah, I put him or her in that situation because they rebelled against me, and they don't have the money nor the authority to take care of themselves, okay? And I remember I got so mad at my youngest daughter when she was playing hooky from school and not coming home at night, and she got caught smoking weed. She started hanging out with people I totally disagree with. Like, she started hanging out with LGBTQ people. That was a slap in my face. That really cut me to heart and the anger. And so when the cops picked her up one day because they caught her at somebody's house that was a minor also. Wasn't none of them old enough to be doing what they were doing. When the cops finally found her, because me and a pastor friend of mine was hunting for her, and we called the police. When we finally found her, the police had her at the police station, and I was free to come get her. And I was so mad at her, I said, can you keep her for a while so she can learn a lesson? The lady laughs at me. She's like, I know the feeling. My son does me the same way. I know the feeling, sir, but no, we can't keep her. She's your responsibility. I'm like, yeah. Well, she don't want to be my responsibility, officer. I know, dear, but she's your responsibility. You got to take her home and see if you can counsel her and get her to do the right thing. But what is the point of me saying all that? The point of me saying all that is that I had to pray. It is now like 5:15 here in Pittsburgh, 5:15 a.m. And I was thinking about the brother that called me last night, and he went to asking me them questions and asking me, as if this is my fault, And as I prayed to God, I was yelling out to God about it. I says, Lord, I don't know if I'm in the mood for this. And the Lord said, it kind of is your fault. Not that you purposely meant for it to be your fault, but it is kind of your fault because you don't have any money to cover what just happened to you. And how many times were you told you should have money in the bank? Right over there in that bookshelf, the Lord said to me. You got books in that bookshelf that tells you, what's the first thing they tell you to do? Save money. Well, saving money means that you have to deny yourself some things for later. It's just like saving money is just like, let's say, you're building a house before you can live in it. You're building a house. Saving money is like building a house before you can live in it. You're getting ready to marry a woman. You have to buy her a ring. You have to buy wedding rings. And you have to sacrifice. You have to make sacrifices to be able to afford those wedding rings. And then you also have to deny any sexual activity with her so that she can be a legal, righteous, godly bride for you. If you defile your own bride, you just defiled your own bride, and it's like a snake. It's gonna bite you in the middle of your marriage somewhere. You might wind up in a divorce. Don't sleep with your bride. Wait till she is actually Mrs. DeRoy Cruz or Mrs. Paul Palmer or Mrs. John Davison or whatever, okay? Wait till she actually is the Mrs. Wait till your honeymoon for that, okay? Because if you defile your bride ain't gonna work well for you over the years. She's gonna, it's gonna tamper with you having real enjoyable sex, and it's gonna tamper with her thoughts about you as a person calling yourself, a Christian and all like that. And why am I putting this on this channel, what I'm about to talk about, is because this is not for the world, it's for the Christian. And before I say the few things that I'm about to say, let us remember Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 12. Well, verse 11 and 12. Wisdom is good as an inheritance, an advantage to those who see the sun. For the protective shadow of wisdom is like the protective shadow of silver, and the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of the one who possesses it. Okay? I need to read that in the New King James, because I thought it said wisdom is good with an inheritance. I got to check that. I thought the New King James said wisdom is good with an inheritance. That's what I thought the New King James had said. Wisdom is good with an inheritance. Let me find it here. Seven and 11. And then you wonder why I'll read it first, and then I'll say. Okay. Wisdom is good with an inheritance. That's almost saying something totally different. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and profitable to those who see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, as money is a defense. This is where I like the New King James rendering better. It said protective shadow. No, it's really a protection. It's really a defense in the New King James. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and profitable to those who see the sun. Okay? In other words, if you have an inheritance, we all know that an inheritance is money. Okay? Or an asset that can be turned into money, a lot of money, good money. Like, let's say you have your father's business. Okay, you own your father's business. You have his house, his cars, and his business. Everything has been laid in your lap because your father died. You're the one that it was laid in the lap to, because you're the only one of kin that can accept it, that can receive it. Okay, so what happens? You don't have the education. You don't know nothing about running his business. You don't know nothing about, you live 2 states away. You don't want to live in his state. So what do? You can sell the house, and you'll have plenty of money. Okay? You'll have plenty of money to get yourself a house in your home state. You can sell his cars, and you can get yourself a couple cars in your home state. Or you can sell everything and just put that money in the bank for a rainy day. Put that money in the bank when you need to escape the country, or you need to, go to a funeral 4 states away, or you need to get on a plane and go somewhere, or like me, you lose your job. You don't have to ask nobody to help because you have that inheritance in the bank. Okay, wisdom is good with an inheritance and profitable to those who see the sun. See, you're not independent. I like to consider myself independent, but the Lord has shown me that you're not independent if you don't have your own independent things to fall back on. See? If you lose your job and you're like, where's mom? When you ain't seen mom in years. But you called yourself independent. Now you want to call your mama and you ain't spoke to your mama in years. That's not independence. Or you want to start calling your pastor. And, you got to let everybody know your personal business because you lost your job. When if you had the money in the bank, you wouldn't have to tell everybody that you lost your job or tell everybody your personal business. All you would have to do is people wonder why you working somewhere different. Oh, I lost that job. They laid me off and I just got another job. That's all. We didn't get along, so they asked me to step down, or whatever. And I went and got another job. I had to let that job go. People don't care really why you switch jobs as much as they care. Why are you poor? Why are you homeless? Why did you go back from working this high level job to going back down here to mopping floors? Like, how did that happen? People care about that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that causes people to consider. But people don't really care about how many jobs you've had, how many times you've changed jobs. They might care if you got a job and you ain't got no money. Hold up, what do you mean you ain't got no money? Well, I can't afford to go bowling. Bowling? We've been planning for this bowling trip for over a month. You can't spend $20 within 2 months to go bowling? What do you do with your money? Okay? We're taking money out for your aunt's funeral. Oh, I don't have nothing to give right now. You don't have $5? What about next week? Oh, I don't get paid till Friday. The funeral will be over by then. You can sit there and criticize the prosperity preachers. You can sit there and you can act like Christians shouldn't be concerned about money. But it is your responsibility. The Lord said this to me tonight. I just got out of bed at around 5 o'clock to do this video. The Lord told me it is your responsibility to have enough money as an insurance policy, to have enough money as backup, as a what? Defense. Let me read it. Wisdom is good with an inheritance. I don't know why the MEV had to tamper with that. And profitable to those who see the sun. Now, wisdom is good as an inheritance. But I believe, they're just trying to keep you from, the writers are taking it upon themselves to try to keep you from thinking that you need to go, you need to be, filthy rich or something like that. They don't want you to get things out of context. No, the New King James has the right context here. Wisdom is good with an inheritance and profitable to those who see the sun. In other words, profitable to those that are alive. Wisdom is good with an inheritance. And we know that an inheritance is your father's money or his assets that can be cashed into money. That is what an inheritance is. Okay? My aunt, she kind of lied, but she claimed that when she was holding my checks, back years ago when I was a kid, she was holding my checks for me. And I needed stuff. I needed underwear. I needed a new toothbrush. I needed stuff. So I called my aunt. I said, Auntie, I need things. And I asked her one day, what are you doing with my money? Because, I'm 17 years old. And my aunt, she says, oh, I'm putting up an inheritance for you. Well, she lied. There was no inheritance. She says, I'm putting up money for you to go to college. I says, well, I'm not sure I'm going to college, Auntie. I'm not sure I'm going to college. I might not go to college. I might just go work. She says, well, when you get ready to go work, then, and you're free and you're out there on your own, then I'll give you, But she lied. She was not saving up my checks. She was spending them. I was making SSI at the time because, as a child, I was always hearing impaired. And when I was young, I was considered having attention deficitness disorder. Now, things have changed today. I don't think they consider attention deficitness disorder a disability anymore. You got attention deficitness disorder. You go see a doctor and figure out what kind of work you do and just go do that kind of work. You don't get to collect disability for it. But I was collecting disability for my hearing and my so-called attention deficitness disorder. So the policy changed after I got married, and the doctor sat me down a psychologist actually sat me down after I got married. He seen that I got a wife and I got kids and I got cars and I got two jobs. No, I had one job. I had cars and things, and he says, Mr. Cruz, he says, you're not retarded. I says, well, I never thought I was retarded, sir. He says, well, I'm just letting you know. We're going to take you off of SSI because you're not retarded. Don't ever let nobody call you retarded. I said, what about my hearing? He says, well, you've been working with your hearing, right? You've done what? You've done all this heavy lifting with your hearing done. You're communicating at work. He says, I cannot, if I put that in the papers without lying, you will not be able to get these benefits. So you're probably going to lose your Social Security unless they want to look into it further. But my evaluation of you is that you're not retarded. I'm thinking, well, I didn't think I was retarded in the first place. I thought I had attention deficitness disorder. I thought those were two different things. But to him, it was all the same back then. Now, today, you tell somebody you got attention deficit disorder, it'll be like, okay, we'll see you at work, you know. But back then, a lot of people were getting SSI for it. SSI has changed around completely. Now, I just recently got off the phone, and now they're going back to it. They're saying, oh, well, if your hearing makes it difficult for you at work, and you know, and after working years for United Parcel Service and that, I messed up my back, which that's not a lie, that's not an exaggeration. I honestly, you can evaluate my back. My doctors looked at my back and told me that I have a bad disc. So, you know, when I told them this, now they're trying to, I got lawyers out there trying to approve me for disability benefits. Now, if they do that, that's awesome, you know, because, you know, I think I am eligible for them, you know. I can work. I can even still load trucks at 58 years old, but the thing is, last time I loaded a truck, I was bent over, had to call off work for like 4 days. I was bent over like Hunchback of Notre Dame. I was hunched over for over a week. And I was just, you know, barely able to lay down and had to take pain medication. My body was all twisted up. But wisdom is good with an inheritance and profitable to those who see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, as money is a defense. But the excellence of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to those that have it. So, always remember that wisdom, New King James, is a defense. But wisdom from God is what actually gives you life. Wisdom is what really matters. Now, if you read about Solomon and you read Solomon's writings right here, you understand that Solomon looks at money and wisdom as one piece. Those that have wisdom have an inheritance, or those that have wisdom have money in the bank. And so, even though what happened to me is not my fault, it partly is my fault because I was already warned by even other employees. How much money you have in the bank, dude? What if something happened, you can't work? What if something happened, you end up in the hospital and can't work for a while? Hopefully that don't happen. What if something happened, you need to leave town? Well, all your family's here in this town, but this guy, he lives in another country that gave me this wisdom. He lives in another country. So he was like, what if something happened, you need to leave the state? Is all your family in the same state? I says, yeah, we're all here in Pennsylvania. My family's only about like 40 minutes away from me. I can be there in 40 minutes. They were like, okay. He was like, okay. Well, you need to keep money in the bank, man, because anything could happen. Anything could happen. A storm, your house could fall in, and how many times did that happen? Last time my house fell in, I was able to stay in a hotel for 2 days, which should have been paid by my landlord, but I was only able to stay for 2 days because I took it out of my own pocket. And when I got home, what did I see? I had to look up at the clouds. There was no roof on the place. If it starts raining, it's going to rain right into my living room floor. You know, this is what happens when you don't have the money in the bank. If I had the money in the bank, I could have moved. As long as I've been telling this dude about the roof, I could have just moved. And once that roof caved in, he wasn't going to charge me. That's why he's not charging me right now. He wasn't going to charge me for he wasn't going to charge me. Okay? But if I had the money, I wouldn't have had to look at the clouds. And I'm trying to sleep, and there's sawdust falling on my head while they up there working. And I went outside. I said, "You do know somebody's still living in here, right?" He was like, "Oh, yeah, he told us don't worry about you. Just get it done as fast as we can get it done." Sorry, dude. He told me we would probably wake you up. And I said, "You ain't just waking me up. You got rain coming in here on me. You got sawdust coming in here on me from the chainsaw." I'm out there talking to him. I'm like wiping the chainsaw dust off my clothes, you know. All this because what? If I had money in the bank. Okay. If you're an American and you're in the Philippines and a typhoon is on its way, you don't have to stay there. You can come home if you got money in the bank. Or let's say a typhoon is getting ready to hit my neighborhood. I can get in the car and go to another state. Drive to another state. If I got money in the bank. You never know when you have to evacuate your home. You never know when, you know, your power is going to go out, because and it could be out for days. What do rich people do when their power goes out? They go stay in a hotel for the next 3 or 4 days. They go make a vacation out of it. Does God have a problem with that? Your power went out. They told you they don't know when your power is going to be back on, but it's going to be out for a while. The longest I've had my power out here where I live right now is 48 hours. My power was out one time for 48 hours. 2 days straight. Okay. That was the worstest time of my life. But it didn't have to be, though, because if I had money in the bank, I could have just left here and went and stayed at a hotel for 4 days. 4 days would have been enough for me to come home and voila, my house is all lit up. I could have called my landlord before I left the hotel and made sure the power was back on, you know. I'm going to read that one more time. Wisdom is good with an inheritance and profitable to those who see the sun. For wisdom is a what? A defense. Now here they say it should be the way it's in the MEV. Protective shade, shadow, protective shade, literally shadow. So the MEV is actually what's more literal here. I'm going to read it again in MEV. For wisdom is a defense, as money is a defense, but the excellence of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to those who have it. Let me read that again. In the MEV. I love my MEV. But I think some things are still better said in the New King James. Let's read that again. And again, silver is money. Okay? Back in the day, they called it silver. They didn't have green cash. That didn't happen to America. They had silver. All around the world, they had silver and gold. That was money. Where is it? 7:12. 11 and 12. Wisdom is good as an inheritance. Okay? And advantage to those who see the sun. And advantage to those who see the sun. For the protective shadow of wisdom is like the protective shadow of silver. Okay? And the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the life of those who possess it. Okay? So, biblically, you know, we drink water every day. And people that live in a civilization, they live in a city, they live in subsidized housing, or they live in a neighborhood that is controlled by the city works, the mayor, and all like that. These people have to rely on the government. They have to rely on the city to supply them with tap water. You're not going out to the river and finding a way to spring your own water. You're not doing that. You're paying a water bill for your own water. You pay water and sewage, okay, so that you can have fresh water in your home. And we also buy bottled water so that we have fresh water that's even more fresher than the tap water in our home. But we all rely on tap water because we're not going to go out there and integrate or spring our own water. We're not going to go out there and trench our own water. Everybody's not cut out to do that. Okay? We're not going to do that. Alright? But everybody lives off of water. Everybody lives off of water. If you don't have fresh tap water coming through your spigot, or you don't like tap water, you got to go buy bottled water. If you go to take a shower, okay, and the shower water is yellow like piss and stinks, and water filling up in your tub is yellow like it's already piss, you have to call a plumber. If you own your own, you got to call a plumber. Hopefully you got the money in the bank to call the plumber, because the plumber's not going to help you for free. He's not even going to snake your toilet for free. Okay? Now, when you live in subsidized housing like I do, they have emergency maintenance people that will come and deal with your emergency plumbing problems or your emergency electrical problems. But when you own your own home, which is a blessing from God, if you own your own home, most of us, if we're owning our own home, which is a blessing, it's a privilege to own your own home. I don't care what the taxes are. It's a privilege to own your own home. If you own your own home, what happens? You got to pay for everything. Much more is received, much more is required. You got to pay for your own plumbing, your own electrical. You got to call the electric company to come in and work on your wires in your home because you're having power problems. You got to pay. I remember when me and my wife and the kids, we never owned our home. We paid rent. We never paid mortgage on a home. We paid rent on our home. So my landlord, when we had plumbing problems and electrical problems, he would pay somebody to come in and work on this and work on that. You know, kind of put a Band-Aid on things. But sometimes the situation was so bad, we had to pay half. He did a deductible on us. Okay, because it's a home. It's not subsidized housing. We live in a house. So he made us pay half because this kept happening or whatever. So he was allowed to make us pay half, okay, on the plumbing or half on the electrical. Okay? If it was something that was his fault because it was his property, like the roof or something like that, we didn't have to pay anything. Just like one time a bird went flying through our house. He came through a hole that we thought was closed and led to the chimney, but the chimney's not being used. You know, we don't have no, I don't know, the chimney wasn't being used. It was supposed to be sealed off. But I'm laying on the couch one day and a pigeon just flew right through my living room. And I immediately got on the phone with my landlord, and the next thing you know, he had contractors there clogging up that chimney. They basically took it off there because it wasn't being used for anything. They took it, they chopped it, and then they kind of plugged it, you know, with pitch or whatever, so with tar. They plugged it with tar so that nothing else could get back in there. But water, we live off of water. You have to have water. Your body is made out of water. But water costs. God understands that water is not free. Water costs. And even if you're drinking just tap water from your spigot, which a lot of people are like, oh, that's nasty. I fill up my jugs with tap water every day. Okay? I don't drink bottled water unless I'm at work or I'm trying to travel or something like that. But when I'm at home, I drink regular old tap water. I freeze it. Okay? I put it in the freezer and make it icy, which they say that kind of kills bacteria. I freeze it. And when I drink it, it tastes like bottled water. It tastes like nice, cold, icy bottled water. Okay? But my point of making water is water like money. You can't survive without money any more than you can survive without water. That's why I'm totally against. God just told me, in closing, let me say it again. God just told me while I was laying on that bed thinking. He just told me it wasn't your fault that you lost your job. It was your fault that you did not have a backup plan, money in the bank to cover yourself. Being you love to be independent, you need to start learning, D-Roy, how to be independent. Independence is going to cost you. Slavery does not cost you. But now, like a slave, I have to call on people and ask them for help, and they talk down to me like, well, how did you lose your job? Well, how come you didn't have money in the bank? You didn't have no money at all? You can't even afford a bus pass? Like, how come how come this? How come that? And it is my fault. Because when the Indian dude told me, He says, you ain't got no money in the bank? What if something happens? I said, you're right. I said, you're right. And when I got the loan, I had to tell my pastor friend last night when he was asking me all these questions. I said, when I had that loan last time, I had a problem. I had that loan. Instead of me thinking that I had liberty to spend that money because I was all caught up on things, what I should have did was I should have divided that loan, and I should have put, I should have put what I could in the bank. But when I think about it, you mean to tell me that me going shopping for my grandkids and buying a few Bibles, adding a few Bibles to my collection, and I really didn't spend any money on myself. Everything that I spent money on was things that I thought I needed, but I still could have got those things that I needed. But what I should have did was I should have waited, and I should have put that money in the bank. And if I had done that, I wouldn't be making this video. If I had done that, the conversation that I had with my pastor friend last night, he would have never knew about it. Okay? My stepson wouldn't see me making a fool out of myself. And I wouldn't have been calling all these people and asking for help. Asking for help from people is not independence. When you're independent, you don't need nobody's help. You don't need nobody's help when you're independent. You just don't. I'm going to do a part 2 of this. And if you have money goals, if there's things you want to do in life, if you say I have plans to do this or that, do yourself a favor and build yourself a bank account. Be patient and build that bank account before you go to venturing off. Because if you go somewhere in a distant land and you're living on your own independence out there and you don't know anybody, something happened, and you don't have that money in the bank to cover your behind, as a what? Defense, as a protective shadow, right? If you don't have that money in the bank, you become a slave. You're a slave to those. What's the Bible say? A borrower is slave to the lender. That's another reason why you can't let anybody tell you it's wrong for a Christian to make money. Because when people give you money, they're not going to be fair. Now, there's pastor friends of mine that have given me money that have been trying to help me out. They've also given me loans in the past. But even when they gave me loans in the past, they said, oh, it's no hurry. If you have it, you have it. Give it when you give it, Or, they would see me getting in a worse situation, so they'd say, oh, forget about paying me the loan back. Don't worry about it. That's what us Christians do. But the world out there that's holding all the money, you end up needing their help. It comes with interest. The borrower becomes slave to the lender. And so, what you got in the bank, because now you're borrowing, when your job don't cover it, and if it don't cover it, you have to take money that's already borrowed to pay off money that's been borrowed. Now you got no money in the bank. Now you're back to being a slave. Money, wisdom, and independence go together. Money, wisdom, independence. The order is wisdom, money, independence. Thank you for watching. I'm going to do part 2.